The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and thrilled to be here with you on this lovely Wednesday morning in sort of mid-August at this point. Thrilled that we're going to be doing a show today. You know, it's Wednesday, and on Wednesday we start the show with Ask Dr. Doreen. I have to be honest and tell you that we do not have the live Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh this morning, but that's okay. We're going to show you an oldie but a goodie, and it's not that old. It's just from a couple of months ago, but she answers some really good, powerful questions that I think affect a lot of you. They're the kinds of questions that we get more than one iteration of them. So that's going to be in just a few minutes. And then in our second hour today for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we're live. And Nancy Allspaw-Jackson will be joining me live for that hour. Our special guest during that hour will be Jen Slade. She is an author and an illustrator who is committed to bringing they're not called comic books anymore. What are they called? Graphic novels about individuals who are on the autism spectrum to the market. She's got a great book called Fill in the Blank, Quirks and All, and she's going to be talking with us about why this is a subject matter that is so important to her. So that's going to be in the second hour, plus Nancy and I have in the news and some updates. It's, you know, I don't know about you, but it's a crazy time right now, this back to school time. And I'm going to be asking a question later on because every autism mom that I know has in the last week said something along the lines of, why is my whole life upside down? And that's Nancy calling me now. We'll check with her in just a second. But everything's upside down. Our houses are a little bit on the messy side more than usual. That things are all in a little like, So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why that may or may not be happening in your household. So, but keep in mind that this entire program is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, your questions, all of those. We'd love to hear from you. So Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us. While she's doing that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a lot of things to do. Please click on the triangle that's on the computer screen to start the live show playing or the most recently recorded live show playing. If you want to go back in time, you can stay on that page and go back 100 episodes. If you click on the little icon that looks like a memo tab, that it's got little dots with lines next to it, so it looks like a memo. If you click on that, you can have access to the 100 most recent episodes. If you want to go further back in time, and heaven knows we can go back almost 6 years, you can do that on YouTube, iTunes, all those other places that Samantha was just showing you. But to the side of the computer screen is something we call the live feature. It's where you can type in your question for free and be anonymous. All you have to do is stick your cursor in the box that says your question and type, and then hit enter. You do have to do that. But there is no username, login, password, credit card number exchange, having to prove that you're not a bot. There's none of that. If you choose to, you can put private information in that transmission. I won't share it with the world at large. If you do anything that even, and I'm paranoid, if I think that your mother could watch and identify your child, I won't post it up there. But you can send private information. I'm very careful about that. So it's taken up a bunch of time. We don't want to lose track of the fact that it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen. Don't forget that we're going to be back at the top of the hour live again, but take a look at Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Donate this hour to be able to answer people's questions, but that there is no one in this venue that could give individual specific advice. That's just a reality of the limitations of this, that you don't have an opportunity to actually meet the person and see things for yourself. So we want to let people know that the advice that you will give is not individual specific, that it's meant to be more general information. But having said that, it's always amazing, the information that you give us.
Thank you very much.
I've had the opportunity, especially in the last 2 weeks, to talk to parents that I feel like I'm talking to BCBAs, and it's just because they've been watching the show.
I love that.
For
That's
several
fantastic.
years.
There's so many parents where I see with their writing, they just have it. They've gotten the concept. It's fabulous.
I was
Really nice.
I was talking to a mom last night who knows skills backwards and forward, and
Really?
was saying, well, I was telling somebody I want them to add in this program and that you can find this in this curricula area, and it's this lesson and the building block is this. And this
That's
is
amazing.
a mom.
That's amazing.
That-
So I want to say, and you haven't seen it yet, but
Okay.
wait until you see it. The new skills for adults. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it's not really, I think it's, I'm trying to think of the age. I think it's 14 and up. So it's, but it is an and the builds though, the one problem I've always had with skills is that we kind of did it backwards, right? We did massive content,
Right.
and we don't have the type of money to spend on fancy technology. So we sort of just built it ourselves and
Right.
said, let's just get it out there to people as fast as possible. So it's not really user friendly. Like, you want to get something, like you look at our graph, you have to go back out and find something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now the new skills, which we've just built with our partners in India, which we're going to use that skin for
Right.
this skills as well. So we're
Right.
going to use that infrastructure so that it'll make easier to manipulate this one, to maneuver this one. But the new one is just incredible. So everything is at a click, one click.
Wow.
Everything. So, and it's same concept. It's basically 14 and up, and it's for. It has all the different areas for adults, which is amazing. Like everything, I can't even. There's vocational, daily living skills, safety skills, all the executive functioning for adults. There's just pretty amazing stuff, and it's the same format. So you answer questions, and then you will get lessons that you can select from, and so on. And it's about 4,000 lessons.
Wow.
And it is just so much better in terms of its user friendliness, and it produces a multitude of different types of visuals for you, graphs, and it allows you to also put in all of the dietary medication. It's just fantastic. I was really blown away when I saw the demo.
When do we get it?
It's out. We are, I think, at the end of this month. I think it'll be out publicly, yeah. And I believe they're calling it Skills Living, although there's some debate about that name. I like it, but we'll see.
It's very exciting to me. Like, I can't wait to
fantastic.
see it.
It's
And
fantastic.
I have somebody who's about to be 14 in less than 2 weeks now. I
Right,
can't
right.
believe that he's going to be 14. And but it gives me a little anxiety though
amazing.
too, because it's like, I'm not going to know where the buttons are, and I have anxiety when they move stuff at Trader Joe's.
But this one, it's just very common sense. So
Okay.
it's sort of like anything you hover over, you can click.
Okay.
Anything you go on, you'll be able to click, and it'll take you exactly where you need to go. So you don't have to go inside a lesson in order to access this page or whatever. You
Okay.
can click from everywhere. It's really well
Exciting.
done. Yeah.
I love it.
It's very
Okay.
nice.
All right. Well, we'll keep you guys posted on that, and I'd love to get a front row seat to be able to see it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
You'll have to tell me who to harangue for that.
Eliana.
Oh, I have her phone number.
Oh, yeah.
I can do that. I know who to get. Okay. I want to start with, we've got a bunch of questions that have come in, and we want to get to some questions.
Absolutely.
So somebody wrote in and said, please help me get through the surly teenage years. Speaking of the, about to have a 14-year-old. And they said, my 14-year-old has a bad attitude about almost everything except sports. Everything, especially school, is stupid.
Yeah.
I know this is a phase, but how do I respond and deal with all the negativity? Do I correct him, or will that call attention to it? What a great question.
What a tough question.
Okay.
It's a really tough question for me because I also have well, not a 14-year-old, but I have a girl who just turned 16, as you know. And she also has, it's kind of difficult for me because I contrast her to her older sister just subconsciously, and her brother, both older, and they were just, they never complained about school at all, either one of them. And with my 16-year-old, she complains about school. And, you know, so I guess I'm in the learning phase myself as well. But here's what I want to recommend. Before, and I would say typically a lot of this sort of, you know, I have lots of thoughts about this, so I'm trying to get it organized here. So the first part of it is make sure there isn't something else going on at school. That's really important. Like often, you know, we jump to saying, yes, you should just ignore it because he'll grow out of it, and he will, but the issue is just make sure there isn't something going on that's really disturbing. Now, that could be a lot of different things. He could have a bully you don't know about. He could just really feel bad about himself because of the failures he experiences in various classes. So however you go about doing that, it's up to you. I would perhaps maybe definitely look at his grades, talk to the teachers, perhaps have someone that you know that he doesn't know go in and do an observation for you. Figure out what it is that he possibly, if he's into sports, maybe he has friends. So it's not necessarily about that. Maybe it's just academically difficult for him and it makes him feel like a failure. It's too challenging, in which case you should probably get him tutoring. In other words, figure out why he thinks school is stupid. Yeah. And if there is a valid reason that you can find, then try to help it, try to fix it, get him a tutor. Maybe if he has an option to select classes, change them around, something like that. Increase his rewards. That's another thing that we often forget is like demand and reward, they have to be balanced, right? So increase the rewards because obviously the demand seems to be too much. Otherwise, if everything seems to be going well, if he has great grades and all that sort of stuff, then what you're looking at is just, you know, I don't want to say laziness, but a lot of our kids in their teen years have a preference for not doing anything. They procrastinate, they don't want to deal with it, and they'd rather do stuff that they enjoy, like sports. Yeah. And if that's the case, then you just need to set up sort of a reinforcement system that allows him to engage in sports if he gets this other stuff done first. And that's as simple as, you know, just finish your meal and you'll get dessert. I mean, it's the same basic concept. But I think it's important to figure that stuff out if you're going to help him, in case there's need for help. Now, having said all of that, there's something else very interesting that as parents, we always immediately assume that our kids comment on things and we need to fix it. Yeah. And sometimes they comment on things they don't need it to be fixed. They just want to share, like they do with their friends. If a kid goes to their friend and says, this is just stupid, the friend is going to say something like, yeah, it is, whatever, and they're going to move on. Sometimes I realize that my daughter will say stuff to me, not because she wants me to go in and rescue her, but just because she wants to be able to complain to someone. Yeah. And that's it. So, you know, that might be the case too. Be observant and see if that's the situation that's happening.
Okay. So much that you said there that I loved hearing all of that. Of course, my thoughts turned to Jem because he's about to be 14.
Yes.
And I honestly can say that one of the best things that we started doing this year, first of all, we made school harder for him because he was looking at stuff and going, I don't know what the point of this is. And I got to be honest, I was looking at it and going, yeah, I don't really know what the point of it is either, because they have them do worksheets and,
Oh my gosh,
you know,
I
mean,
know.
it's just like, it's a little
I
much.
know.
But we made school a little bit harder. And then.
How did you do that? What do you
Well,
mean?
we moved him into a different
school,
group
so
of,
that's
it's within the same school, there was a different group of kids that move a little bit faster.
got it.
So we pushed for the really harder teachers. There was
Right.
one teacher who is like known for being so tough that nobody wants to have their kid in there if they're afraid. And I was like, give us that one.
Really?
And it's been great.
Really
He's awesome.
interesting.
And it's been tough. It has been tough, and he has been unrelenting, and it's been great.
Fantastic.
But we also, because you always say the reward thing, and my son's currency is not sports, it's games, and he always wants to have friends over to play games, because everything is, I've noticed at this age, everything is Joe cool, I'm not having a
Yeah,
reaction,
yeah.
I'm apathetic to everything, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me, nothing, I'm too cool for school, right? Except about the one thing, whatever they're really into.
Yeah.
And for my kid, it's the video games. So we gave him a Friday thing that if on Thursday, and I have a way that I can check his grades, if he has all A's and B's, he gets to invite his friends over. He can have 5 friends over. So it's 6 teenage boys in my house, and I have the snacks
That's awesome.
that are like
That's
the thing.
fantastic.
And I let them make a mess in our
fantastic.
TV room, and they play video games, and they do live streams, and the other kids from school come onto the live stream to watch it, and they scream and yell. I was on the phone the other Friday, and somebody said, is there a fist fight at your house? Because they scream and yell and go, no!
Amazing.
All of them together, and they actually, all of the apathy goes away, and he has worked like a dog
Right.
to make sure that he has an A or a B on Thursday so that he can have his thing on Friday. But what it's also done is that he has those core of people. So I've noticed that everything at school has gotten better because he has that group of people.
Yep.
So
It's
many of the things.
fantastic.
and
It helps so much.
it really has made such a difference, and we had a little get together the other day for his birthday, and parents were saying, so who are these group, how did you get this group of kids around him? And I was like, we have a Friday thing, and it's obnoxious. Like, I don't like it. Can I be honest that it's a miserable thing for me, because they tear my house apart, and it's a little on the expensive side to put that much sugar that I don't really necessarily agree with into these kids, sugar and gluten. I'm not about that. Bryce Myler had taught me that. She was like, make your house have the best snacks that everybody wants to go.
She's right. She's right.
And, so they say they like Twinkies. I have Twinkies.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. What can you say? But anyway, so
That's awesome.
good luck with that. And then, he still is too cool for school the rest of the week, but he cares deeply about the Friday.
That's fantastic.
And at least, because even in that movie Inside Out, there's the whole thing about the transition from the girl and the death of joy.
Yeah.
That they have to become teenagers and joy has to take a back seat.
Absolutely right.
But I get to see him be joyful on Fridays and on almost kid-like, not little kid-like, but screaming and yelling and high-fiving and jumping up in the air and doing whatever.
It's so absolutely fantastic.
And that's the thing that maintains the good grades.
That's right.
It's like cheating.
It's
it really
amazing.
is.
It's
Anyway,
amazing.
so that. Okay, let's take a short break, and then we'll come back with more questions for Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multisensory educational felt toy that I invented to help develop children's language skills.
I love My Little House.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
Oh, this is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life. Welcome back to Autism Live. I hope that you're as excited about those My Little Houses, or as I call them, Mi Casa Pequeña, because I got one for my niece that we just have a new family member that my niece adopted from Colombia who speaks Spanish, and so we're calling it Mi Casa Pequeña.
Nice.
And I cannot wait to give it to her. But in any case, we are here with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, and she's answering your questions. We had a question come in on the live feed. Kara says, my 11-year-old son who has autism and is ID is really starting to dig in his heels. If he is asked to do something he absolutely does not want to do, example, getting out of the pool at Special Olympics swim practice, which turns into him screaming, resisting, etc., and can become a safety issue. Do you have advice on how we can help him with transitions like this? The explosive behavior is really starting to happen more frequently.
And he's
11-year-old.
Right, and you said, could you read the first section again?
She says, my 11-year-old son has autism and is ID.
Intellectual disability.
Okay,
go
got
ahead.
it.
And
is really starting to dig in his heels. If he's asked to do something he absolutely does not want to do, for example, getting out of the pool at the Special Olympics swim practice.
Got it.
Okay.
So, so the thing is, there's two, so basically it's a very simple situation where obviously the difficulty that our kids have is always following an instruction or a demand, and particularly when it's going from a preferred activity to a non-preferred activity. So going from being in the pool to being outside of the pool and having to shower and get dressed and all that sort of stuff. So essentially what happens, I'm guessing, is that he will scream, tantrum, get aggressive, whatever it is, and then by doing that, he stays in the pool longer. And what happens is he has conditioned you. He has used the ABA on you. In other words, what he's doing is he punishes you for requesting that he get out of the pool. You say, come on, get out of the pool, it's time to go. And he'll, I don't know what it is that he does, but he has a major tantrum or whatever it is. And this is a punishment for you or whoever is asking him, because now the next time you're less likely to ask because you don't want to deal with that punishment, which is him freaking out on you. So it's really very simple. It's very effective.
He's working you, which is a sign of intelligence.
It definitely is. Whenever a child does something manipulative like this, it's always a sign of intelligence, because they're taking the principles of ABA and manipulating you with it, which is fantastic. Now what you have to do is kind of reverse the problem here, and essentially you have to consider it as, okay, what is the problem behavior? The problem behavior is him tantruming, etc., etc. And what you would like to do is not allow that behavior to be effective. We know for a fact that that behavior occurs when he is told to give up a reinforcer that he wants. So essentially what he's doing is he is getting really upset every time you ask him to do something. So he's avoiding that activity. So what you have to do is you have to ignore what he does, and you have to actually force him to do what you said. And that is going to be a little bit difficult initially, but I don't know how, and the child's 11, you should probably have an adult there who forces the issue, so that when you, and you can give him a transition, absolutely. For instance, you can say, you can give him a timer, and you can say it's 5 minutes, it's 4 minutes, and show him on the timer somehow, some visual timer that really helps. And then when it finally, the timer goes off, you must physically help him to get out of the pool. Now he's tantruming, crying. I don't know if she described what his outburst is.
Well, she said screaming, resisting, and it can become a safety issue.
Right. So basically you need help, and you need someone who is trained in assaultive behavior management. These are some techniques where you know how to defend and protect yourself, and you know how to restrain the person if you need to, if they're doing something that's going to endanger them or yourself. So, but it will require the breaking of this habit. In other words, he will need to physically be helped out and then redirected to some other activity, so that he realizes that when you say it is time to get out, he gets out. Now, what you also will do is over time, you will teach him, first you'll just teach him, when I ask you to leave, it is time to leave, period, and that's that. And you must follow through with it, and when he leaves, you give him a big, after his, so he leaves, now he's having a major outburst, doesn't matter, you will assist him to go in, and then you'll wait, don't interact with him, you will wait for him to calm down enough where you can actually give him something else to do. Usually I like to pick something that's a natural, very easy thing for the individual to do. So for instance, I don't know, ask for a glass of water, or maybe, something in their room, some other thing that requires very little response level. So touch something, or I don't know your child, so I don't know what his capabilities are, but something very easy. And the reason you ask him to do that is because as soon as he does something positive, you can reward it.
So it could be, could you turn on the TV?
Absolutely. It could be anything simple. Could you turn on the TV? It'd be take off your shirt. It could be whatever it is, like put on your, get a towel, open the water, whatever it is. And reward for that. Even though he might be screaming and tantruming, it doesn't matter. You're giving him instructions, and you're rewarding for those instructions, and you're ignoring the tantrum. The tantrum is not happening, but you're just moving along. And don't discuss what happened, nothing like that. Tomorrow, the same thing. You allow him to go in the pool, and then you give him the transition period of time, and gradually, if he learns to ask for more time, which you'll do later anyway, you'll teach him to verbalize later. Once he's learned that your word is the word, and once he's learned that when it's time to leave, it's time to leave, you can teach him to request more time. You can teach him to say, can I have 5 minutes? and then give him the 5 minutes on the timer. In fact, that's not a bad idea even when you start. And he'll see that the timer, when the timer goes off, you're not changing your mind. This is very important. Don't start this if you don't have the stomach for it, because if you start it and he tantrums and then you give in, what he's now learned is the more my tantrum, the louder I am, the more intense I am, the more likely they're going to give in. And so now you've reinforced the higher level of tantruming. Don't do that, please. So just make sure you have enough people around you to help, and then just stay firm with it. So this is the typical thing that our kids learn. You know, if I tantrum, they'll let me get away with anything.
And I think, you know, from a parent's perspective, it's that much easier if you do this, if you have an ABA provider and you go to the team and say, you know, I want to do this, and have them help you start it, because you'll get off to a good start. So often parents can do, like, if it's 20 steps, we can do 18 of the steps and get them right. But if we blow it on the 2, we tend to not realize that we blew it on the 2, and we go, this doesn't work.
Right.
And I know firsthand that what you just described works.
It works. It's hard.
It's hard.
Mentally hard for parents, because we don't have the stomach for it.
And it doesn't feel very rewarding in the minute, because it feels like your child is just freaking out. Now your life is miserable. But I know, you know, when we were starting ABA, it was right when the Tiger Mom stuff was all in the news. The mom who was like, you know, my kids are going to do this, and the dad who would take away their blankets and they'd have to earn their blankets at night.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, and they interviewed the one kid who was old enough to leave the home and said, I will never see my father again.
Yeah.
He's entitled to his opinion about raising, but I'm never going to see my father again. And I remember when I got it in ABA, when you guys told me what to do and how to do it, and when I got it and my son got it, and I was able to follow through on something, and I had that epiphany of, we are going to get along better now.
Definitely.
He and I are going to be closer, because he is going to do what I ask him to do, because he trusts me, and he knows that only good things happen then, and he's going to want to listen to me.
That's right.
And we will be closer and better. I remember that Crystal Shepard had said to me when she told me about ABA, she said, if you do it and do it right, it's the best parent training that you will ever get in your entire life. And your friends will start to go, how'd you do that? And my friends did start to say, how do you get him to do, when we'd be at the pool and I would say, you have 5 minutes, and he would go, okay, Mom. And then 5 minutes later, he would get out of the pool, and they'd be dragging their neurotypical kids out screaming and kicking. They go, how do you do that? Is that because of autism that he gets out so compliantly? And I would go, ha! You know, like, that's a reality. No. And that he would get out and give me a hug, because he knew he was going to something that was even more fun.
That's right. And because you made it fair and rewarding.
But it was ugly in the beginning.
Oh, it's always ugly in the beginning, because what we end up doing as parents is we don't, and this happens a lot when your child has a diagnosis, obviously, because you feel guilty and you feel bad, and so you want to nurture more even than the typical parent, right? You just want to give them everything you can. So in effect, I mean, the lay term is we spoil our kids. We spoil them, and then it gets to a point where we're not doing anything abusive,
right,
but we're also not defending ourselves. And the parent's right to be able to say, it's time to get out of the pool, or it's time to do whatever it is just good parenting. It's not abuse, right? I don't know how I feel about, like, you having to earn your blanket back.
Oh, I don't like that at all.
There's a little bit of a difference here, because there's no, you don't need to, you know, we're not saying by any means raise your child in an army barracks. We're not saying that at all.
I think the opposite.
Exactly. In fact, and that's what's really important for parents to realize, is that you're not being abusive. What you're doing is you're teaching your child that there are certain rules in life. One of those rules is listening to your parent. Later on, these rules become extremely important in life. Children who never learn to follow rules are the children who later on get thrown in jail, do things that get into trouble.
They don't have boundaries.
Because they don't realize that there are societal rules. And all you're doing is you're teaching the child that there are societal rules. There are rules. And you need to deal with those rules. And the satisfaction of it initially when the child is young, obviously you have to pair it with a lot of reward. But over time, the child starts to, and I'm sure Jem is there now, they develop a sense of just, they feel good about themselves for having complied with the rule. And that is really, really important, you know, and some kids it takes longer and other kids it's shorter. I mean, I always talk about my kids too. Like Nikki, you know, and you know Nikki, she's always very rule governed. In fact, most of her life I tried to teach her to do others, you know, not be so rule governed, but she gains such an incredible sense of satisfaction by doing the right thing. And she's always had that, right? And Sonny didn't for a very long time. My son, I was like, when is he going to feel just satisfied by doing his homework himself? Like, when is he going to enjoy getting good grades? And he's now there.
Yeah.
And I am just so overjoyed because it just required, I don't know what it required, to be honest with you, but now he's getting A's and he's enjoying it. And now you see him like spending hours studying because he doesn't want to get anything other than A's, you know? And it just develops on its own. And I think that's the kind of thing for the child over time. They actually become more, they develop this sense of self-worth because they've done what the parent asked. And I always say this, Shannon, about our kids. A lot of kids, the reason we do things initially when we're young is because we want our parents to be happy with us and not mad at us. So with our children on the spectrum, sometimes they don't recognize that. They don't realize that the parents' emotions are in any way are affected. They don't care because they're not even aware of the parent. And once you make them aware, then it's just really good parenting.
And this is an opportunity to do that. And I should say, if you want information about how to follow through on some of these techniques, Institute for Behavioral Training, go to ibehavioraltraining.com. They start as low as $7.50 for a video training that you can get for a period of time that you can watch it, your significant other can watch it, your babysitter can watch it.
And I recommend it, especially the modules on how to handle challenging behaviors. It's just so important that you learn these techniques.
And when people ask me, well, where should I start? I always tell them to start with compliance.
Right.
Because when you start to see what it takes, how little effort it takes to get true compliance, and true compliance for me is not that you say something and it's like a drill sergeant, like the Tiger Mom, where you say it and they do it. True compliance is when you ask somebody to do it and they want to do it for you.
Absolutely.
And they've thought through, is this a good thing to do? Because I didn't want a child that would just do whatever anybody told them to do. I want them to have a mind of their own and think, is this something that's worthwhile? Yes, I'm going to do that because I like you and I think this is worthwhile. And then they comply. Oh, that's when you've got all the good stuff going on. Okay, I'm going to move on to this other question, though, because we've got some good questions here. Marie had written in and said, when is a good time to teach a child with autism potty training?
Oh, yeah. Well, I would, and that differs for each child and their skill set, but I don't necessarily think you should delay potty training. I think somewhere around, I would say probably 2 or so, you should work on potty training. If your child's 3, you should definitely work on potty training. I would just treat it like any other issue. Our kids learn just the same way. Typically developing kids learn, your typical kids learn, so I would do it the same time, as young as possible. And boys usually take a little bit longer than girls, but go for it.
Okay. And then somebody else had written in on our live feature saying, how do I get started with my appointments for my daughter? She has autism, and when can I get started?
Well, if you're with CARD, if you're trying to get started through CARD, then you just go on our website and there's a portal to get started. You can also call our 800 number and we get you started that way.
One of the best things, because we don't know where you are and you didn't write in where you are, if you go to centerforautism.com and you click on the locations tab, you can see all the states where CARD is established and places where they're taking clients where they don't necessarily have a center yet, but where they're taking clients. It'll say, if it just has a location, then you know that they have a center there. If it says taking clients now, it's a relatively new thing. But there's more than 140 across the U.S. and more that are coming I'm told that it's going to be 200 by the end of the year. So
Yeah,
that's
our
just,
goal.
That's
I
a
think
lot.
we're around 140 right now.
Yeah, that's so 140. And if you live within 30 miles of one of those centers, then definitely start the portal. If you don't, you can still do the portal because there are other things that you can talk about. There's telehealth. There are other considerations to do. So, but it'll look a little bit different, and we can talk about that another time. But centerforautism.com, go to the locations tab first and see. It is a lengthy process getting started, and people don't realize that.
Yes. And it's lengthy, and I have to apologize, but there's two main reasons I think that three reasons, to be honest. One reason is we often have a long wait period from getting funding. So we have to gather all this information from you and send it to insurance or whoever is funding it, and that takes a while to do. And that's one reason. Another reason is just because we're very obsessive about getting to know the child, so we require you to fill out a lot of assessments on your child initially, and that's really important for us. And so that's a second reason, so initial paperwork and then getting it through to your funding source. And the third reason is seriously just because we're overloaded. We have, I don't even know, the vast majority of people here at headquarters work on admissions, authorizations, posting, billing, etc. And it's all just because, in just the month of April alone, we did 216 intakes, new patients, just in 1 month. So that just takes, we're overloaded.
It's so, but sign up, and one of the things that I actually love is that you have to do the paperwork now.
Yes.
Because it used to be that you would sit and wait, and as a team was being put together for your child, and there was a little bit of paperwork to do. But now you'll be taking the assessment on skills, which I think is the single greatest investment you can make in your child.
Right.
Because
it's the short assessment.
It's going to serve you for however long your child is needing extra support. It's going to help you with your IEP. It's going to show you exactly where your child is now, which is what we all want to know in the beginning, and how far do I have to get, and how do I see progress. It's a good investment of time. It'll give you something to do, to put your energy that's positive for your kid. But don't be under the mistaken notion that, I heard somebody say yesterday, well, I think what I'm going to do is start ABA for the summer. So I think I'm going to call and get that started for the summer because I've got a little bit more free time for the summer. And my heart bled because I thought, well, if you start today, maybe you'll be starting midsummer, but you're not going to be. I think people think, oh, well, I'll just call and get services next week. It doesn't work that way.
No,
but get
true.
started. Now is a good time to start, whenever it is. Okay, I wanted to go to this question. Hi, Shanna. My teen doesn't hear when people talk to him. He has perfect hearing when tested at annual physical, and if we talk about his favorite topics, he definitely will hear. What happened was we were exiting a store. The security guard asked him if he paid. He didn't hear and didn't notice the person talking to him. I was right behind him and answered for him. This was at the grocery store. And yes, he has anxiety and auditory sensory issues. What is this, and how do we get him to tune into the world? Can see this making a social impact and being misunderstood. And thanks so much, you amazing ladies. We're looking forward to the telethon with Corey, and that's our haircut mom.
That's fantastic.
We love her.
Yes, we do. So I would have to assume that it's not that he doesn't hear, obviously, it's that he's shut off the world due to, I would have to guess, his anxiety. So I think what you do is you do a shaping procedure. You basically do it gradually. It could be anxiety, and it could also be background noise. I don't know, but it sounds like he does perfectly fine if you're talking about his favorite topics. So it doesn't sound like it's background noise issue. It just has to do with the fact that if you're not on something that's of interest, he doesn't tune in. So I think what you do is you can do it multiple different ways. You can basically start by talking about his favorite things, and then throw in a sentence that has nothing to do with his favorite things. And then over the course of the next month, make it 2 sentences and 3 sentences and so on and so forth. And that way get him to have dialogue. I think you'll probably succeed with that, but then it won't, it's generalization not just across the content, but I think it also has to do with generalization across people. So he might have a hard time responding. He might respond to you or listen to you, but not to strangers or someone like the security guard. So you'll need to fade into that as well. You need to shape that behavior as well, of other people talking to him, who he doesn't know perhaps. And then also, and you know, just stand there and make him stop and listen for a moment. And the other thing is the way that we work on this is we go one sentence at a time, obviously. So as you give one sentence, you ask a question about it, 2 sentences, ask a question about it, that sort of thing. And then I think the third factor is distance. So if someone talks to him from a distance, you're going to want to shape that as well. So start out very close and then gradually fade out. And I talk fast to Haircut Mom because she's an ABA expert by now.
Yes, no kidding.
So what you're doing is you're generalizing across the content type, and you're generalizing across the people involved doing it and the distance.
Okay, wonderful.
I want to.
You got one that you want?
Well, the one that is from Tasmania.
Okay, let's do that one next.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, Shannon. I'm not, they're from Tasmania. I was going to
Yes.
say their name as if you would all know their name, but I don't want to identify anybody. I have found your program on YouTube, and this is how I started to follow you due to time difference. I love the program. I love you and Dr. Doreen. I'm so grateful for what you guys do. My boy is 3 years and 2 months. I do ABA at home 20 hours a week.
It's amazing.
The only ABA therapist of the state lives on a different city, so we arranged to do clinic on Skype, and she then sends me the new programs. I'm exhausted, and I'm finding it difficult to keep my son interested in rewards. The only things that effectively work for him throughout the session without running away are food and YouTube videos. So I take the phone back in between programs. The therapist said that the videos could make him uninterested in anything else at all. I'm trying to avoid to work with the phone, but it's hard even to get him sit voluntarily without it. Any advice on how to keep him engaged in ABA, and is it bad to use the videos sometimes? Thanks.
Right.
You know, what's funny is that there was a part of the A word where there was a phase in which Jack Riley, that's all he was interested in was the phone and watching other kids on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they use it.
Yeah,
in the A
absolutely.
word.
You should use it. I'm just about to say that. So anything that's a powerful reinforcer, you use. Don't even worry about it. The important thing about it is the length. So if you ask him to come sit down and then you give him a video for 10 minutes, that's not good, because the reinforcer has to be, can't be longer than the task itself, the response. So you basically, if you ask him to come sit down, it is perfectly fine to give him some sort of, I think you said he also likes food. You know, basic small demands, you should probably reinforce with something that is very fast. Now, if you're able to use the videos but cut them off, that's fine too. So like you could let him watch a video for 10 seconds, cut it off, and just put it there and have him do the next task, and then let him watch 10 more seconds. A lot of times our kids get a little bit frustrated with that because the 10 seconds of a video doesn't really make a lot of sense. So what you should do is you should start a token system. Go on the IBT website, Institute for Behavioral Training, which is ibehavioraltraining.com, and learn how to do a token economy. What you want to do is you'll start out with just very basic. When he sits down, you will draw, let's say, a happy face, and you give him a candy or something that he likes. And then gradually what you do is you replace the candy with all just smiley faces or happy faces or some sticker or something that's important to him. And once you have 2 or 3 of these, then he can earn a long period of time watching a video. Now, video works perfectly fine, but you have to let the child watch it for like a minute or 2 for it to make any sense. Who knows? He might even enjoy it for 15 seconds. If he does enjoy it for 15 seconds, don't hesitate to let him watch it. The fact that someone told you that the videos would make him uninterested in anything else, no. A lot of kids are just extremely interested in videos because they get more out of it than anything else, you know, so that's not the issue. But so do this and it'll work and it'll be fine. You always, any kind of reinforcer, as long as it's short, is going to be fine. Now, more importantly, what I want to tell you is you cannot do this alone. God bless you for trying to do this, and it's fantastic, but 20 hours a week is a lot of time for one person to be doing this. So what I would really recommend you do is slow down for a minute, train yourself a little bit more, and get a team around you. So you seem like you just jumped in and you're doing a fantastic job and you're working out. I'm worried more about you burning out. So what I would do is I would really recommend strongly that you get maybe 2 other people to help you. They could be high school kids. Maybe there's a high school or something where they have to do community service. I don't know, or if you could pay them a little bit. And you teach everyone, you have everyone get on IBT, get on the Institute for Behavioral Training website and start going through those modules. That's where you learn all the techniques. You need to know these techniques. Something as simple as just having the individual come to you has a technique. There's a technique involved in come here. There's a technique involved in sit down. There's prompting that goes into each of these that are important. There's a process that's involved with putting the 2 together. There's all these shaping and procedures that are important. You can't just tell the child, come here and sit down, and they'll come here and sit down. You have to know these techniques. And these are incredibly important to the process. And if you don't do it with those the right way, you'll be frustrated, he'll be frustrated, it'll fall apart. So take the time, try to hire 1 or 2 people to help you, and then try to spend some time learning these on IBT. Obviously, once you buy a module, you can have 5 people watch it 10 times. It doesn't matter. Just get really good with this. And once you have that, then obviously you can go back and start teaching. Your child is 3, it's the best time, but don't panic. You could take a couple of months to really learn this stuff and then get your child involved with it. And we do also do telehealth, as Shannon said. I know that in Australia, your time difference is ridiculous with us, but we do telehealth. And if you're interested, you could get one of our supervisors to take you through and do all of this for you.
And what a worthwhile thing to do. I do want to say that, you know, sometimes we tell people, well, you're going to be reinventing the wheel. But the fact of the matter is that at this point in the game, there have been many people who've come before you and hired other people.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's been volunteers. We had one mom who got a local sorority. Sororities and fraternities have to adopt a cause. They have to have a charitable cause, and they adopted her child. And over a 3-year period of time, all of the sorority sisters learned and worked with the kid.
Yes.
And then another family that we had that their church got together and said, we're going to do this with a little girl. So, you know, we have seen people be able to do this on $0. You would not be the first one. It does mean you have to get outside your comfort zone and ask for people, and then you have to train them, and you have to be very on them and make sure that they're doing it right and being safe with your kid. And you know, it is. But the truth of the matter is that if you really want to be, if you're already doing 20 hours yourself and you really want to get to 40, let's be honest about that. Where you really want to be is at 40, and there's no way that you can do that by yourself. Even if you wanted to, you wouldn't get to true generalization. So you've got to have other people on your team.
That's right. And when you go from 20 to 40, you'd be shocked how fast your child gets through these issues, because they won't tantrum as much, they won't have a hard time, because it'll be a lot of hours. And it's so much easier. And you know, I always refer to one of our dear families who's on the recovered tapes, right? Ruffin.
Yes.
And he, who, by the way, I don't know if I told you that I decided to do a follow-up to Recovered.
Yes, I'm very excited about it.
Of course, Ruffin very graciously agreed to also be on there again. It's the same kids, they're all in, and they want to show us what amazing stuff they're doing with their lives now. And Ruffin, who I think is in his late 20s by now, is, of course, in a PhD program now, and he, I think, switched from robotics to computer science or something, or statistics, I'm not sure right now, but he's doing fantastically well. His family was in a very rural area in the US, and his amazing mom got all the neighbors to come and become therapists. And Evelyn, who was their supervisor, would fly out, and it would literally take like 16 hours to get there, you know, like plane, train, and automobile. Again, once you got there, you had to train everyone, the neighborhood, and they all worked with him. And I love watching those early videos, because these are moms and, you know, other students and people just coming together to help this one child.
It's doable. It's doable.
Absolutely.
But you're going to need some help.
Support.
And that's going to take a little bit of time, but you can do it.
other people who don't really get it, it's like it's not a big deal. But it's like, yeah, we've been working on this for like 5 months, and he finally did it on his own, and I think that's the most exciting thing. Look, star. Look. Can you see star?
Mouse.
Huh?
Dog. Parrot.
Jack Riley,
Talk Riley.
come here.
Baba Talk Riley.
Hi. Good boy. Okay, sit down. Thanks. All right.
Baba like a
What do you want to play when we're done? Do you want the tractor or you want a puzzle?
puzzle.
You want the puzzle? Okay. Okay, ready? What is it?
It's
Say needs knees.
it's
Good boy. What is it?
it's
It's knees. Good job. Transitioning, he always has to say bye-bye, and it just makes him so sad. But I know they use it as a transition word for him, but I kind of want to vary it so that it's not bye-bye every time, like it's all done, or we'll play with it later, or something like that. And just kind of guiding him to whatever it is that we're doing. Or giving him words like, you know, kind of have like 1 more minute playing with the blocks or playing with the tractor. Just so he knows that he can ask for more time if he wants to. I just kind of want to nip it in the bud if I can. Okay, Jack, 1 more minute. Say okay.
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 It just seems like there's a lot of emotional involvement, and it's kind of hard not to
It
be
is.
involved because
It
you know
is.
you're affecting
Yeah.
people's lives.
Yeah, every day. Yeah, it is. It is hard, but it's also like rewarding too. Come here.
Where will this?
No, come here.
Baba look at
Yay!
this.
Hi, mister. Hi, mister. Give me jumping. Good job. What is it?
Toby.
Jumping. You're so smart. Give me jumping. Nice job. What is it?
Toby.
Jumping. 1 more sticker. Are you ready?
So when you're teaching a new label, you start off with just
The field of 1 so that it's isolated and he knows that, you know, this is the only thing that we're looking for, so that when we throw them into the ones that he already knows, or even with ones that he doesn't know, we can be able to see if he can discriminate that these pictures are jumping versus the other one. So that's when the true test is, you know, does he know what the picture of jumping looks like. So then after this, I'm going to throw it in the field of unknown pictures to see if he can even discriminate. And after he knows that, then I'll throw it in with the actions that he's already mastered. Give me sleeping. Rock on, good job. What is it?
Sweepy.
Sweet, nice. All right, Jack, let's go outside, okay?
I say.
All right, let's go. Thanks, buddy. Oh, you're just always so cute.
In part 21, we learned that Jack Riley requests regularly now. Because of this, they are now introducing a new skill that will build from what he has already learned, waiting. First, it will only be for 2 seconds, and once he gets the idea, they will increase the time slowly.
You want an E or a Y?
Wait.
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 No. Wait.
Wait.
No. Wait.
Wait.
Hands
Wait.
His down.
There you
Good
go.
boy. There's your Y.
Yay, there you go, buddy.
Wait.
E.
Wait.
E.
No. Wait. Hands down.
Yay, you did it.
Wait.
Wait.
Good waiting. Good eye contact too, lovey.
That's really good, Cheryl. So you're so good at that.
Welcome to Smarty. This month we're going to be making our own chore spin wheel. You'll notice while we make this fun activity, these icons are going to be popping up onto the screen. These correlate to specific skill sets that are in the Skills program. Skills is the ABA-based online tool that helps parents build their own teaching plan for children on the autism spectrum. If you are a Skills user, this will help you get the most out of this educational opportunity. Well, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are a large bowl to trace, cardstock, scissors, a pencil, a ruler, a hole puncher, a metal brad, and any other arts and crafts materials you want to use to decorate your pinwheel with. So step one, you're going to take your large bowl and place it on top of the cardstock and trace the circle. Step two, you guessed it, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to cut along the line. Step three, you're going to fold the circle into quarters. This is the best way to make sure all the triangles within it are symmetrical. Once you folded the paper, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to trace those lines so you can actually see them on the circle. Now here comes the fun part. Take your arts and crafts materials and you're going to decorate the chore spin wheel. I used some crayons to color in every other quadrant so you could see them pop and see the difference between the different chores. Place the different adaptive skills your child is working on in the different quadrants. Once you're done decorating the circle and labeling the different chores in each quadrant, then you're going to take your scrap paper that you had left over and you're going to cut an arrow out of it. Once the arrow has been cut, you're going to take your hole puncher and hole punch on the very edge of it. This will be your spinner. Then you're going to take your arrow and your circle and line them up and take your brad and place it through and secure it. And voila, you have your finished chore spin wheel. Well, I enjoyed making this activity with you and I hope to see you soon. Until next time, guys, craft on! To find more about Skills and to access all of the lessons you saw in today's Smarty, visit skillsforautism.com and click on the parents icon. Skills, the online autism solution.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I immediately took an inhale and I don't know what I inhaled, fuzz. I'm Shannon Penrod and Nancy Allspaw Jackson, I believe, has just gotten here. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break because this is all fun stuff that we want to wait and do with her. So stick with us. We'll be right back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids. What are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I was a little bit late walking in today. Had some issues.
It was a miracle that you were here, though. We were expecting you to be another 10 to 15 minutes late. When we started the show this morning, my phone rang and I said, it's Nancy. And it was you calling me saying that you were having you needed to take care of something with Wyatt.
With Wyatt, yeah.
And we always say that takes precedence because first and foremost, we're autism moms. And and so we weren't expecting you to be that. I thought I was on my own for In the News. So
okay, well here I am.
So there you are. So
here I am.
Excited to be. I had said to them earlier this morning too that one of the things I want to talk about today is that I just feel at sea. My house looks like, I'm just gonna lay it out there and be. My house looks like. Somebody who's insane went through and just threw things in different directions.
Mine's not looking so good either.
Oh man, and I there's no food in the refrigerator.
No food in our refrigerator. No, my child hasn't eaten a vegetable in days.
and the laundry, I did a lot of laundry over the weekend, but I'm still not caught up.
Yeah, I don't know what. Maybe it's the impending doom feeling of school starting,
I guess, or it's just that like the time of year, or it's that transition thing.
Yeah,
transitions are hard for our kids, but they're hard for us. And somebody was telling me the other day they felt guilty that they were anxious for school to start, and that made them a horrible mom. And you know me, I'm always like, "Woo, school's out!" Like I'm excited about school starting. I had some concerns about it. I don't anymore. And I need some normalcy. I need a regulated schedule again. It feels like the end of the holiday break, where you've eaten all the sugar, and it's like time to eat a salad again, and you want regimented.
I so hear you. I'm glad you don't have any feelings about school, any apprehension. I have tons.
You have tons this year?
Yes, tons this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to talk about that. I was nervous all this last week. Jem had, a starter sort of thing that he was doing for 2 days, the last 2 days, which was going to be his first entree into this new school and new people.
And it went well?
It went really well. It went better than, the highest expectations that I could have, from what I'm hearing from him. Who knows what they think. But he had a great time and enjoyed it and can't wait to go back to school next week. So we're excited about that.
That's fantastic.
Nothing is ever going to be perfect, right? And I'm a lot less anxious than I was, because yesterday you could have bounced a quarter off my head.
Right.
I was just so wound so tight, and I was telling you, I moved heaven and earth to pack him a gluten-free lunch because they were going to provide lunch at a place that he couldn't do lunch. And we bought a new lunchbox and everything. And you know all the steps that we take, how we overdo to make it right.
Right.
And my husband drove to the special sandwich shop that I got to take you to this place in Burbank, Ike's Lovin' Sandwiches.
Yeah.
Gluten-free bread. That's so good. You'll die.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And so my husband drove all the way there to get the special sandwich, and we're keeping it cold. And it sat there on the kitchen table, and Jem and I both left, and neither one of us grabbed it.
Well, the reason why I'm late this morning is because it's swim day at camp, and I forgot Wyatt's bathing suit and towel.
And
drive back home, get it,
And I didn't have time to go back home to get the lunch, so I was a crazy woman running through a Ralph's grocery store going, "Where's the gluten-free bread?" and like, what can I? And I had like 8 people working in the store that were running around getting ingredients for me because I had 8 minutes to get it back before the bus was leaving. It was insanity. I couldn't breathe.
One of the things that stresses me out the most is having to get the school supplies.
Yeah.
That stresses me out. And also having to go on all the different websites, because everything's on the web now, and I don't have anybody at home helping me with that. It's just me.
And you have to go on a bunch of websites?
Yeah, because Wyatt's classes are all on the internet, his assignments. Yeah.
And they're all separate?
A lot of them are separate, yeah.
Oh, we need to have a talk with the school.
I know.
How does that work for anybody?
I don't know. That's what I wondered all last year.
That's an executive functions nightmare for anybody.
Exactly. Anyway, so we're all verklempt.
Yes, there's a lot going on. And I know it's not just us. A dear friend that's an autism mom had posted something yesterday and said, I don't have laundry, I don't have groceries, and work is this, and I was like, okay, it's not just you, it's not just me, it's
Good
not
to
just
know.
her, it's a thing. So write in and tell us if you're
if
you're having a week like
you're
that too.
having the same issues that we are.
But it's just going to be a matter of time, and then the kids are going to be back to school, and at least then
Seems like we were just there 5 seconds ago.
we
This
were.
summer
This has been the
flew.
show to summer, but at least then I think we all do better when we have a schedule.
I do too, for sure.
I will say this too. This morning, I was so excited to hear that David Letterman is coming back to television. He's going to
is he?
He is, and
I didn't hear that.
I love me some David
Right.
Letterman, and apparently it's going to be on Netflix or something. He's going
Okay.
to do a different sort of talk show. And my husband said, when asked why David Letterman was going to do this, he said, when you take off time to be with your family, it's always best to ask your family if they wanted time with you.
Right.
And that he forgot to do that. And I said, but you know what? I think David Letterman, if it's structure. When you have to come in every day and you have to go to work, whether it's a show or something else, it's structure. I always say, I want some time off. I want some time off. But I don't do well with time off.
I don't either.
Right?
I feel
structure.
I feel out of control when I have time off.
Yeah, a little bit is good every
Yeah.
now and then, but structure, and that's our kids too. So is that any
Sure is
surprise?
our kids.
Okay, we got
So
something in the news.
Yes. You want to start? Let's see. This mother of 3 who is investigated by police after claiming she used bleach to try to cure her son's autism on a secret Facebook group.
And we've touched on this subject a little bit before because there's been a lot of hubbub surrounding therapies and things that are not scientifically proven, and sometimes they're dangerous.
Yes.
And there is a thing that some people refer to it as CD.
Yeah,
It's
chloride dioxide.
And some people refer to it as MMS, which is Master Miracle Solution. And what it is industrial bleach that people are giving to their children orally or by enema. And there's a secret Facebook group, apparently, where you have to pay a monthly fee to be a part of the group. And parents post pictures of things coming out of their children's intestines that they say are bacteria
And
parasites. But doctors look at it and say, no, what you're seeing in those pictures is not parasites. That is the burnt out lining of those children's intestines. So I want to make sure that our audience knows that this is, even on their own website, they have cautionary statements about the fact that it's not an approved treatment, that you can get in trouble for using it, and that you should hide your supplies if officials come to your home. Now, come on. We have to use some common sense. We all want to do things that help our children, but we have to use some common sense. And this is harming children.
It's not illegal yet, so there are a lot of the experts saying that it should be illegal. And it said that the most extreme case was a 6-year-old boy who had to have his bowel removed and a colostomy bag fitted after his parents gave him the enemas.
And part of who is touting this product is a church that's called the Genesis 2 Church. They are very strong in England and in Ireland, and they have a chapter here in Southern California. And on their website, I don't know what the arrangement is, but they advertise this on their website. So it's been touted as being a cure for cancer, HIV, malaria, Alzheimer's, and autism. It is not a good thing. Kids are being hurt. And officials are asking you if you are using this, if you own some of it, to throw it away immediately. And if you think that your child has in any way ingested it and might because these parents are reporting on the site that their children are weak, that they can't get out of bed. If your child is having any symptoms at all, do not hesitate. Take them immediately to seek out medical attention, that it could be a matter of life and death. So, please take heed. Miracle Mineral Solution, Miracle Mineral Supplement are 2 other names for it, and it's nasty stuff. It's bleach, burning their intestines, not something that is good for them. Okay, shall we move on to rethinking regression in autism? So I want to encourage people to check out in Spectrum News at spectrumnews.org. There's a really interesting article right now about regression in autism that kind of goes through the history of, we've been saying for years that we know that it's not just autism, that there's autisms.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, I guess I was undereducated on this, that officials have referred for a long time, since the beginning of autism, because Kanner's the one who started it, of there's two different types of autism, one being innate and one being regressive. I didn't know that those were the words that we were using, because it does seem like there were two categories.
Yes.
That some kids just never made progress.
I always ask my friends that, did your child make progress or did your child regress?
Right.
And it seems like the vast majority of parents I talked to said their child regressed.
Right. And studies have shown at different times a different percentage. And this article kind of sheds some light onto why that might be. And doctors have said we need to throw away this whole innate and regressive for a new model. For a while, they've been using something where they had early onset, delay in regression, plateau, and then regression. And they've said even that doesn't begin to cover. I mean, we both had kids who regressed, but I think they regressed in vastly different ways.
Yes.
And that's really what this article talks about, that researchers are now saying we've got to stop looking at this in such a narrow focus. But one of the things that I found really interesting was even the kids that regressed later, like our kids did, that I felt like there were no symptoms of anything before 18 months. I just really wasn't seeing them. They reviewed tapes and they went back through pediatrician notes and clinician notes and said, once you know what the diagnosis is, when you go back, you can see
those
that there are symptoms before, and that it isn't as, for people who say it was like a light switch that got flicked off, they're like,
not really.
There are some markers early on.
That the parents may have missed.
And that they think that the regression isn't as instantaneous as we've been led to believe it is in some kids. For my son, it was very slow and ugly.
It was a slow regression for my son as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
And they're finding that that's more and more the case.
Yeah.
But because no one apparently has defined what to call a regression, they haven't been able to get clear studies about who's regressing how much, because everybody's been looking at it at different. Some people just say it's regression if they lose language.
Right.
But not all kids lose language. Some of them lose other skills. So very interesting article. Again, go to spectrumnews.org and read up about that. It goes into the whole, what Kanner said, what Bettelheim said, and why we're kind of stuck with this thing that doesn't work because of Kanner, and we don't want to be stuck with that.
Right.
In any case, I added a new story here too that I don't know if you saw that. But did any of you get a chance to see this last week on Vice? They did the entire half hour on autism. And it was a really interesting, in-depth article that showed a bunch of research that isn't mainstream research. We cover a lot of research. There were at least 2 studies that they talked about that I had never heard of before. So I think it's still playing all this week.
Autism Under the Lens, it's called.
Yeah, and it's Gianna Taboni is one of their. She's amazing. I know you would love her. Investigative journalist that goes around the world. I can't imagine. She's this beautiful, tiny little thing, and she walks into things that you just think, how did she survive? I love to watch Vice and see some of the stories that they show. So this was really interesting. And of course, it featured John Elder Robison talking about it. One of the things that I thought was particularly interesting was they went into the whole self-advocate movement of people who are saying, we welcome neurodiversity.
Why we don't need to be cured.
We don't need to be cured. I thought that John Elder Robison was very interesting because he has done some of that new electromagnetic stuff on the brain where they put the magnets on the brain. And his description of it is, you've got to see it, you guys. It was really, really fascinating to see him talk about how he felt afterwards. I want to do more shows about that. But he's somebody who has been a self-advocate who says, we're neurodiverse.
There's nothing to be fixed here.
But then he did a therapy that to quote unquote change how he looked at the world,
Right.
and then he looked at the world in a different way. It's
Yeah.
not as clear cut for him anymore.
Right.
But there was one scientist who I thought made a statement that he put it in the best way that I've heard anybody say it. I will murder it, so you need to go and watch it. It's on HBO this week. But he basically said, look, we've got all these wonderful self-advocates who need to be listened to. We need to listen to what these adults say. But if we only listen to them, then we're letting out a whole other subset of this autism community, which are children who are nonverbal
Right.
and need therapies
Yes.
to be able to communicate. And he said, you have to be able to find the marriage between listening to the adults who are on the spectrum, but also listening to the families of the kids that don't have a voice otherwise. And to do anything else is a disservice.
And to just always keep in mind it's a spectrum disorder, and there are some kids that are severely affected that their parents don't think it's a blessing.
Yes.
Nor would maybe the child, if the child were able to talk.
Yes.
With some severe behaviors.
Yes.
You know, those children that are affected by not only lack of, they're nonverbal, but really the behaviors that are so destructive.
Yeah. It's a very interesting debate that rages on. Because of course we all believe in nothing about us without us. We want to have as many people having a voice that are affected by autism as possible. But when you have a child who has no way of typing out what they want or communicating it, we can't leave them out of the conversation. Right. And you have to give room for their proxy, which is often their parents, to have a voice for them. Mm-hmm. And I know that's complicated, but it is.
It's a necessity.
It is a necessity. But then there's a new study that's out this morning that I just added, and I think it's in your packet, Nancy.
Yeah, but I didn't get a chance to preview this.
Let me give you just a little bit of background on this. There's a study about music therapy and autism, and the headline is that researchers saw no benefits when comparing music therapy with standard care for children with autism. But there's always an asterisk, right? And I love the fact that in doing this show, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox always taught me, okay, don't just go for the headline. You got to read what's being compared to what's being compared. Because if it's apples to oranges, you can't really compare that. So the standard care for children with autism that they looked at was what's happening in Norway. And what's happening in Norway is just speech and OT and some sensory integration.
Okay.
Now that's not a standard of care anywhere else in the world. The gold standard of treatment is ABA. So they didn't look at children who are getting ABA therapy and then getting musical therapy in conjunction with ABA. What they saw was that these kids that are getting this Norwegian standard of care and had musical therapy weren't making a whole lot of progress. Well, we've already done that study.
Right, exactly.
But so I don't know how you can say if you give something that you know isn't effective and you put something else on top of it and it's not effective, then neither thing is effective. For me, that's not an if P then Q.
Right.
We don't know. You still don't have the study, and plus which, and I love that this article, we're looking at the CNN article, but it's all over the news today. We do go into the fact that individuals are individuals. So for one person, musical therapy is not going to be reinforcing.
Exactly.
And
just
so
like
that's
art therapy,
not going to be effective. It would be like if somebody gave me physics therapy, I wouldn't make a whole lot of progress because I'm not interested in that. But if you give me something I am interested in, I might make a lot of progress.
I've never heard musical therapy touted as a benchmark treatment for children with autism.
Well, there are
people can, quote, cure them.
Right. Well, there are people who, we never want to say we're done, right? We know that ABA is effective, and I'm a huge fan of ABA, and I say get the ABA, follow the science, get the ABA. But I personally believe pair it with other things, and let's not stop.
Exactly.
Let's keep looking for more things that are effective. And for one kid, we see it all the time that look at Spencer Hart, for heaven's sake.
Right.
Here's this young woman who was barely speaking and watched Phantom of the Opera and then began to sing, and she is a social butterfly flying around the world and meeting people.
So it's highly individualized.
Yes, but that wouldn't be the same for somebody else. But to say that it's not effective when you're doing what you already know isn't effective makes me mad.
Yeah, I get it.
Anyway,
Okay.
we'll take a breath, and we've got a great guest coming up in the next half of our show. This fabulous book that you've got here.
Yes.
I mentioned this at the top of the show. Jen
Fill in the
Slade.
blank.
She is the author and the illustrator of this. My husband tells me all the time they're called graphic novels.
Okay,
I
graphic
still
novel.
think comic book, but it is, and it's set up like a frame by frame comic book.
It's called Cartoon Junk Food by her.
Fabulous. So she's going to be here with us in the studio and talking about what has driven her to want to write these kinds of books about starring main
Kids on the
character,
spectrum.
kid on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So she's going to be with us in just a few minutes. Stick with
We'll
it.
be back.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
This is the Act Today, One Hope Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival, and it's to benefit military families challenged by autism. So we're out here for a great day. Not only is there a 10K run, a 5K run, and a 1 mile fun run, there's a kids run and there's an Easter egg hunt. Military families are particularly hard hit because they have very special circumstances.
I have 3 kids in my family. You know, my nephew has 3 children that are all on the spectrum. And for me, it originally became about understanding and learning about autism. And then it became about, you know, what can I do to help? It takes $3 million to raise a child through their lifetime with autism. That's a great reason to get involved.
On your mark, get set.
One Hope Wine is the 7th annual title sponsor of the One Hope Act Today for military families because we believe that giving back is good business. Of-age runners are probably going to meander over to the One Hope and Stone Beer and Wine Garden for a celebratory glass. For the younger generation, the Family Fun Zone.
This is a big thing for us because it's about getting more treatment to more people, raising awareness. It's a really good event. We're proud to be a part of it for 7 years now, and we're a local office, so we wanted to be here.
Stroller Warriors is a free running club for military spouses and their families.
a lot of us are impacted by autism. So it's just a great way for us to get together and raise some money and bring attention to this important cause.
I think people forget the people element involved with autism. You know, the families that are suffering, the children that are suffering.
Society could be robbed of so much untapped potential, talent, and skills if we're not helping the children of these military families as much as any other children out there. Not just those suffering with autism, but those struggling.
People should get together and tell their friends and family to donate to ACT Today. It's a really important cause, one that's close to our heart and the San Diego community as a whole, and an incredible opportunity to support the military. So get out there and donate.
And we are back now with Let's Talk Autism, and we are now joined in the studio by Jen Slade, who, as we promised, is going to tell us a little bit about her book, Fill in the Blank, Quirks and All, and about her brand and what she's trying to do with this series of books, what you hope to be a series. But first, tell us about you, Jen, and your background.
I am from New Jersey and went to school for animation in Philadelphia. When I was 12, I did a volunteer newspaper that was kind of like a Far Side style.
Right.
And then from then on, I was like, okay, I'm doing cartoons. That's my thing. And so I went to school in Philadelphia at UArts and got my bachelor's in animation. And then after that, a group of friends and I decided to move to California because that's where all the animation is.
Mm-hmm.
And I slowly started to see how 3D was becoming the thing, and my thing was traditional. So I was kind of doing jobs here and there, and then I got into teaching animation with a bunch of animators. We would go school to school and teach kids how to do 30-second animations on non-smoking. And then from there, I found a job where I was teaching kids with autism. And I had zero background with autism and had no idea what I was getting into. And from day one, it was just fascinating beyond my belief. Every day is different. Even now, I've been there 9 years. Every single day is different, and
so you found a home.
I did, and from there I decided to get my special ed teaching degree. So while I was working on my cartoons, I was teaching full time and doing my teaching degree at night. And at some point, I was watching TV and I heard the phrase "fill in the blank," and I thought, in my own cartoon way, I thought that'd be cool as a character name.
Fill in the blank.
So then I just started writing. From there, I just started writing that night, coming up with ideas, and then I thought, how cool would that be if the kid had autism and he was living in this blank world, a world that we don't understand.
Right.
And I had also remembered that I read somewhere that a parent was saying, I wish that people would focus on kids who are nonverbal or lower because they don't get any recognition.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see any cartoons because I don't think anybody knows how to go about it.
Right.
So I decided, well, I have 9 years experience, I'm going to try and do a comic book.
So you came up with this book,
Yeah.
Fill in the Blank, Quirks and All, and it's about a nonverbal boy with autism who struggles being understood. And tell us, he lives in his imagination. How does this, what are the other characters in the book?
So it begins, the whole book is an intro. This is going to be at the beginning, so
Okay.
there are definitely going to be some more. It starts out with him playing in the woods, and he likes autumn, and he's running through the leaves, and he lands in a pile of leaves, and he lands on a weed, and the weed jumps up and says, hey, what are you doing? Watch where you're going. And he's like alarmed, like, you're talking to me? How can you hear me? And from there, he starts talking to a tree and a sunflower, and he's blown, like his mind's like, what's going on? And from there, they start talking. They say they're going to be here for him. They're going to help him through his problems. And then next story, I go into some sensory where he's playing with lights on and off.
Mm-hmm.
And I broke up the comic book into sensory and problems. So
Okay.
between each scene, so we went from intro to sensory. The next scene is his daily life again, and he's going through a problem. And then he goes to his mom and he goes to his friends in the woods and they work out a problem. And then the next one is a sensory. So it's kind of like a little break between stories. The one after that is noise and sensory, where he's getting up in the morning and there's too much going on.
So you actually get into his head, into his mindset.
Yeah.
And help him and show us through the book how he really feels and what he's thinking.
Yeah. And at first I thought, well, I don't have autism, so why should I be writing this? And how can I make that up, right? So I actually got in touch with Ito and Tito. Ito wrote me back and he gave me some feedback on this. And he told me that he thought it was pretty...
For everybody at home, would you explain who Ito and Tito are in case that they don't know?
Ito wrote a book called Ito and Autism-Land, and he struggles or has struggled with being severe and nonverbal. And in his book, he talks about how frustrated he is and how ignored he is and how much he really knows, but nobody else knows because he can't get it out.
Right. They assume non-intelligence.
Yeah. And from a lot of what I read, I thought, oh, wow, like for me, pictures came up and ideas and cartoons and colors and all of this stuff came to my head. And I thought, wow, this would be great. My background, my favorites growing up were Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts. And I just thought this would be a great, like, Calvin and Hobbes-esque take on it with autism. So with that in mind, I wanted to make sure he respected what I was doing. I didn't want to be making up what the truth is. I want the character to be true.
Right.
So I made sure that was okay, and I kept checking in with him while I was working on it. So I felt good. I felt like I wasn't, just making up stuff.
And you got his stamp of approval.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've got some pictures that we want to show. Go ahead, Samantha. So is this how you storyboard?
Yeah, so this is after I've come up with some ideas. The picture on the left is one of the sensory scenes where he's waking up, the alarm clock gets to him, and he screams and runs out of the room. And then the whole scene is all just visuals. There is no dialogue.
Okay.
And you just see him run through the house and he's going through all the noise issues he has.
But it's so clear, I have to say, and your drawings are so compelling, and I'm so glad that you said the Calvin and Hobbes, because there is something about the colors that you choose that it's very reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you particularly were drawn to the segment about the sweatpants.
Yes, I was, because my son can't handle wearing jeans or hard clothing.
Yeah.
And he's always in gym shorts and sweatpants.
Yeah.
And, I never thought about the fact that he maybe feels at times he doesn't fit in. And Phil has this issue.
Yeah.
And comes to a solution.
Yeah.
To put sweatpants inside the jeans, right?
Yeah. So I have students who wear sweats every day, nonstop, and I tried to put them in a regular school, a typical school, and put them in place of somebody who doesn't understand how uncomfortable clothes are, and wanted the friends of his in the forest to help come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And so the flower came up with helping him combine sweats with jeans.
Right.
So he kind of tricks his friends into looking cool, but being comfortable.
So you envision this as a series of books, though.
Yeah.
And at some point, will there be a cartoon? Do you
I hope so. I mean, I'm now starting to present it at animation expos. I did a small one at CTNX, Creative Talent Network. They do a road trip short, kind of like farmer's market style setup, where you go outside, you just walk around, and you can see artists, right? And I presented my book there, and I got to meet a lot of people who have family in the autism community, a lot of people that work in schools and are therapists. And luckily, it was right at the end of April, so we squeezed it right into Autism Awareness Month. And yeah, it was really great meeting all these people.
So how can people get the book now?
You can go to Amazon and type in fill in the blank, but you have to put the second L, because I know nobody spells Phil with 2 L's.
Okay.
But that was a play on word. Fill in the blank, fill in the blank.
Right.
So that's the only thing. And
so PHILL in the blank. And they can also search by you, Jen, Jenn Slade.
Yeah.
SLADE. To be able to get the book. So it's on Amazon. And do you have a website where people can go for more information about what you do?
I made a website for Phil. So he has his own cartoon website, and it's called fillintheblank.com. And there's a link there for his book, and he talks about the book on the page, and there's pictures of the storyboards and the paintings. And then there's a link to my website. It's called cartoonjunkfood.com, which is my portfolio and my own personal work.
Okay.
And on that site, you can also go to Amazon. So they're all linked together.
And so I'm sure you've had the opportunity to show this to kids that are on the spectrum. What's been the reaction?
Oh my gosh, they love it.
Yeah,
yeah.
Of course.
And a lot of them will just say, "This is me." Or
yeah.
at the art exhibit I went to, one of the brothers of a kid who has severe autism came up, and he's just thumbing through it, and he goes, "This is my brother."
Mm-hmm.
And it just hit my heart. So it was just
Right.
like I got it right on the
It
nose.
must be an amazing feeling knowing you're connecting with.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do it right. I wanted to make sure it was real, and it was really real to these people.
And I think it's super important for everybody to be able to see themselves in literature and in art. And, you know, I always think about Whoopi Goldberg talking about how amazing it was for her as a young woman watching Star Trek, and she saw Lieutenant Uhura, this woman who, you know, had skin like hers,
Right.
and who was the communications director on an International Federation starship, and it gave her permission to do whatever.
Right.
We always need to give our kids on the spectrum people to look up to, role models, and people that they just identify with and say, see, you're counted. We see you. That cannot be understated. So what a wonderful gift. If you have a friend who has a child who's nonverbal and you're looking to give them something,
And
or you're a
even
parent.
if they're not nonverbal, I think this
Oh, it's
child is
lovely.
so relatable.
I mean, I go through these things.
Yeah, I mean, the school picture day is in the book. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that. What happens for school picture
Oh,
day?
yes.
So with kids with autism, whether it's severe or not, they have hard time with
Smiling.
connecting their brain with their actions.
Yeah.
And so my take on this was he's really freaked out because he's got to go home and prepare for picture day, and he's afraid he's not going to be able to smile when there's a camera in his face, which is normal for all of us.
Right, yes.
And so he goes home and he's stretching his face and he's trying to get it right in the mirror, and his mom's like, just go practice. And he's in his mind, he's going, well, it's easy for you to say because your face moves when you ask it to.
Right.
Mine doesn't. So he goes to his friends in the woods, and they practice and they give him some ideas. So when he goes to his pictures, he's more comfortable and he's ready for it.
It's really wonderful. And I started by saying if you know somebody who's got a child who's nonverbal, but as you were saying, it's good for everybody. And for those of you who have friends who are always like, what can I do to help? And what we all want is for our kids to feel included. So this is a great book to give so that they'll love the book. They're not even going to process all of it, but later on when they go, why doesn't Billy talk? Well, Billy's like Phil.
Yeah.
You have that basis for explaining to the child, oh, Billy's like Phil. Phil's great. So but Billy's okay. Great tool for inclusion.
And I think for, sisters and brothers that have siblings with autism,
Yes.
then they'll know how to communicate back and forth. They'll know
Right.
how to answer questions to their friends at school, and they won't feel so, I don't know how to answer this, or, stick up for my brother.
Right.
It'll be more natural for
Right.
them.
You do a great job of just getting us inside the head of this child, I must say.
Yes, sometimes with no words at all.
Yeah.
Other times with words.
Those are the more fun parts, actually.
All right,
Yeah.
they're very fun. So fill in the blank,
blank.
PHILL in the blank.
Quirks and all.
Yeah.
By Jen Slade.
Jen Slade. And so Amazon.com, you can get it there. But tell us your website again that's all your
My stuff.
Your stuff, yeah.
Is cartoonjunkfood.com.
Okay, we love that.
All right, Jen.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
for being
being
here.
with us.
Love the book.
Yeah, check out the book.
I'm actually going to bring it home and have my son take a look
Sure.
at it. I
There
think
you
he's
go.
really going to relate to it.
All right, we're going to be back with more Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
I am Alexis Weinman at the Future Horizons Super Conference in Dallas, Texas. It helped me in a way because it was a format that I was not used to. Like, I had never curled my hair before. I've never worn heels. I didn't know what foundation was. And it was just, it was a very, like, it helped me more in a business sense. Like, I know how to present myself in front of people now. That's something my mom drilled into my head. I have trouble sometimes with it. Like, you introduced yourself to me downstairs, and so I immediately and I've heard of you before, so I was like, I know this person, I can make eye contact with this person. And if I'm talking to someone I don't know, or if I'm listening to someone give a speech, most of the time my head will be down. I don't look at people in the eye, but if it's someone I know I need to make eye contact with, I make eye contact. But my mom growing up, she, especially after the diagnosis, she would always grab my hand if I was looking everywhere else but her, and she'd say, look me in the eye. And so she wouldn't let go of my hand until I looked her in the eye. I do feel like I have to play poet because, sometimes there'll be jokes I don't understand, but I'll laugh at anyway. There will be situations that I'm not comfortable with, but I'm gonna have to play along anyway. And I think I just found out I'm just a tremendously amazing liar. I can pretend like I'm uncomfortable with something when in actuality I am screaming inside, or I know the moment I get back to my dorm room I'm gonna start screaming. Or having a meltdown or something like that. But I also know that there is a time and a place because there isn't any safe rooms available in neurotypical society. We have to make our own. And on a college campus, there's not many places you can go and scream without attracting attention. The way I explain it to people is, people's brains are like hamster wheels. Eventually the hamster's got to take a break. Autistic brains aren't like that. They just keep going and going and going. So we can't stop thinking about things. That's why a lot of kids with autism have sleep problems, because they can't fall asleep because they have too much on their brain. They can't sleep because they're thinking too much. And I think just the walking in circles, there's no thought to a circle. It's just, so I'll just plug in my earphones so I can't hear anything else except whatever white noise I'm listening to, and I'll just walk in a circle. I think it's just we are just as prevalent as men with autism. There might not be as many as there are boys, but we are still part of this movement. We're still part of this community, and we just got to remind people that, hey, we're here too. Don't forget about us. One thing I've learned is that, first off, I'm not the only person who is speaking from their own perspective. I feel like I go to some of these conferences and it's a bunch of doctors and a bunch of parents who want to talk and get to know what autism is about, but there's not a lot of people on the spectrum talking about it. And so I come to these and I see Temple Grandin, who's one of the biggest faces in the autism community, actually get up and talk about what helped her and what we need to do in order to get our kids out of society and not in our parents' basements. And so it's just kind of reaffirming, I'm not the only one. Thank you. Because I'd go to these and I would be the only one. I'd be next to a bunch of doctors and talking about words I have not even seen before, let alone pronounce. And I'm just sitting here I did a pageant once. So it's good to know I'm speaking from a perspective of not necessarily overcoming, but learning to live with this, because I feel like not a lot of people come out and say what it's like to live on the autism spectrum. A lot of people talk about the struggles and everything like that, but they don't talk about what they've done to make their lives better while living on the spectrum.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
And we are back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
And we wanted to talk just a couple of minutes. There's been a couple of stories in the news lately, and there was one in particular that really got to me because it felt personal to me. A story in Atlanta that a young boy, 9 years old, on the autism spectrum, and he was going to summer school, and then he was supposed to transition to this after-school program. And the mom went to pick him up, and he wasn't at the after-school program, and they were like, oopsie, what happened? And somebody had put him on a bus. The bus driver took him home, opened the doors, let this 9-year-old on the spectrum off the bus.
Without a parent picking him up.
Without a parent, nothing. He went to the door, and of course, mom wasn't home because she thought that he was at the program.
Right.
And fortunately, he sat down on the front steps. It was really hot. By the time mom got to the school, saw that he wasn't there, panicked, went home. He was still sitting on the porch. He had sat there for 3 hours.
So he was overheated, and he was probably distraught. But
Of course, and
no
the mother was distraught
damage.
as well, and said, anything could have happened. And she said, I don't know how the school could have made this mistake. And the school has said, it was human error and that no one's going to be reprimanded. And the mom said this is especially shocking because they'd already done this once before a year ago.
Right.
And so on the one hand, I want to be clear, this is blatant negligence on the fault of the school. This is not the mom's fault in any way, shape, or form, but I want to say to all of us, I know I'm one of those helicopter parents that's always at the school and asking things and double checking. And a lot of times over the years, I've had teachers, one teacher in particular, who was like, oh my goodness, what? This is about you, and why don't you trust us? And da-da-da-da-da. And I said, because I've seen far too much.
Right.
So this is my kid. Forgive me if I'm not going to take a chance on what you say, because you got a lot going on. And this, she said to me about a field trip that I insisted that I was going to go on, a field trip that while I stood there, the bus that my son was supposed to be on pulled out of the parking lot and left without my son. And I was like, yeah, no, good thing I'm here. But in any case, I think we all need to get a thicker skin about being sure that people are doing their jobs. And when they look at us and think that we're crazy, just just letting that roll.
Keep going through, because you've got it is, so much of it is on us.
And we have to protect our kids. And as much as I would love to say to you, oh, be trusting and loving and whatever, I don't think you wait for a strike, but if you get a strike, I mean, God bless this mom that she was able to get to the point where she once again trusted these people, but clearly they were not deserving of it. Right. And that is not her fault.
No.
But I certainly hope that she doesn't, because the principal is already saying, we'll never do it again.
Right.
Well, that's right, you won't, because I would be on the phone every day saying, you text me when you have him from one program to the other, and that's the only way this is working. And I don't care. I'm at that point. I don't know how you feel, Nancy, but I don't care what they say about me.
I don't care either. I mean, I'm going to be all over it if something happens.
I think we have to. Yeah. When I think about what that mom had to have gone through, knowing that her kid sat there for 3 hours, and at 9.
Yeah.
Where I personally don't think that 9-year-olds need to, whether neurotypical or not, I think they still need supervision. Yes. I know that there are people who don't agree with me on that, and bless them. I don't know what their circumstances are, but I think that 9-year-olds need supervision, and you don't ever just drop off a kid and hope that somebody's home. But somebody put him on the bus too. It's not just the bus driver's fault.
Right.
Anyway, so I've talked a lot.
So we have to be the monitor, really, of these things.
I don't know who else could be.
I don't either.
And it's one more thing, and maybe that's why our houses are upside down.
Maybe that's why we're overwhelmed these days, because
Yes.
we know we've got a lot of these responsibilities.
And it is, I always say to people when I'm turning my kid over to them, this is the most important thing in my life. I am entrusting you with the most important thing in my life. And so I want to know about those people. I want to know that they're worthy of that kind of trust. I love how schools and doctors' offices just think that we're supposed to, you have letters after your name, that means you're trustworthy. We know, we've done the stories here. We know that that doesn't follow. It makes me nuts. But my thing always is that my personal belief system is that sometimes there's a lesson, and sometimes you're the lesson, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes somebody else gets a lesson, and it can be tragic or not, but it's our responsibility to learn. So here's this mom who went through something, and it was a lesson. And thank goodness her child is okay. But for the rest of us, let's just take note and be extra diligent as school starts to make sure that there are no misconnections.
Yes.
As I'm saying this, I have to disclose that part of the reason why I've always been paranoid about these things is that my very first day of school ever, back in 1960, whatever, when I went off to kindergarten, my mother put me on the bus to go to kindergarten. I went to kindergarten. I stood there and told the teacher a million times, I see my sister over there, I'm supposed to be on the bus with her. And she said, no, honey, this is the bus for you. Get on the bus and wait for your stop.
She was wrong.
She was wrong, and my stop never came. And the bus driver was going back to the bus garage as I was sitting on the back, because she told me, wait until your stop comes up and then get off. I'd never been on a bus before. So I sat there and it didn't come up, and I was being silent, and I was at the back of the bus, and he was taking it back to the bus garage, and I heard the radio go off and say, hey, do you have any kids left on your bus? And he said, no. And I knew that wasn't true, so I spoke up and said, I'm still here. You didn't get to my stop yet. And he was like, what?
He didn't even see you there?
No, he didn't know I was there. And he said, yeah, apparently I do have a kid. Well, I was verbal. So when we had Paul that died on the bus a couple of years ago, it really took me back, because I know what it's like to be left on the bus, but I was able to say,
here I am.
I'm here. You didn't take me home. I was able, if I hadn't been able to say that, he would have took that bus and parked. Now, instead he took me home, and my mother was there hysterical and saying, why didn't you get on the right bus? And I said, I tried to get on the right bus, but that woman made me get on this bus. I tried to tell her.
So this is deeply personal for you.
Well, I just know that stuff can go wrong. And I've also been a teacher. And I've seen things, it isn't easy to be, especially in our school system now, to be in charge of a bunch of different kids. There have to be safety precautions in place. But if there aren't enough, we have to lobby for more. But yeah, I'm paranoid because I know firsthand how easy it is. And I could talk, those kids can't. In any case, be your kid's advocate.
We have to continue to do that. And you're right, maybe that is part of the feeling of being a little overwhelmed these days too, which
I think that
comes
might
with
be
the
it.
territory, and that's okay.
And it's good that our kids are going to school, and there are lots of people that are trustworthy. They are. But until you know, assume not, is my motto. And there's going to be a bunch of school administrators that are going to hate me for saying that. But hey, these are our kids.
These are our kids.
And, we can't be too careful.
No.
But get them off to school, double check, do whatever safety double checks you have to do. We're out of time, but I want to say that tomorrow we've got a bang-up show lined up for you. We've got a yoga instructor, Yale Calhoun, is going to be with us talking about the benefits of yoga, and she's got a bunch of free resources
specifically for kids on the spectrum.
Yes.
Okay.
And a bunch of free resources for you to be able to do guided meditation for yourself and for your kid.
Great.
So she's going to be wonderful. We've got Bonnie Yates, who's going to be answering your legal questions. We had a bunch of questions about back to school this week. That's ramping all up. And then we have Lisa Ackerman from TACA is going to be talking about their conference that's coming up and some exciting announcements coming out from TACA.
Okay.
So all
Great.
of that and ever so much more
Great.
happening tomorrow on tomorrow's show. So stick with us for that. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for
Bye-bye.
now.